pretty much acknowledging the fact that indeed cultures change, as long as humans are the ones that, you know, make up what we define as culture, you know, definitely things are changing because humans are changing as well, you know. But I said it's now what we do with the change that happens, what we do, why we change, and ensuring that we're changing for the right reasons, you know, is probably what we should then focus on. Yeah.
Okay, so in your experience too, Pastor T, what do you think in your interactions with people? Do you think there is a shift? Because in my own interaction, I think there's a huge shift. So in your own interaction, do you think there are shifts here and there from how we used to reason and how they reason now?
I mean, absolutely. We cannot deny the fact that there's been a whole lot of shifts. I mean, it's not just about change. I think it's been a shift. A lot of things that we used to hold dearly, no longer being held dearly today. A whole lot of value system that we really respect today. They are no longer things that are considered as really, really big for this new generation. And I think the biggest issue really, just like Dami said, is that there's a cultural shift. A lot of things are changing. But what we do with those changes will determine what we get. For every action, there's a consequence. And what we need to begin to discuss really today is what are the positives? What are the ones that what are those shifts that we've seen that could be beneficial for every one of us? I mean, no matter how old you are and no matter what generation you belong to, what are the benefits to us? And then what do we need to do in order to be able to take advantage of those things? Because unfortunately today, we seem to see more of the negative, we see more of the negatives than the positives around this shifting culture. And that is quite unfortunate because there is a concept of continuous improvement. And the concept of continuous improvement says that you cannot continue to do the same thing and expect a different result. So if I want a new result, if I want to see a new outcome, then I must be ready to do things in a new way. However, today, we are seeing people who want to make change just for the sake of change, but not willing to take the consequences. And I think that is what we really need to talk about across the whole spectrum of our life.
Like you said, and I'm going to ask you that question now. Like you said we need to be talking about the positives and the negatives and, you know, the consequences and all of that. For me, I used to think that people decide to make changes without necessarily understanding that some of the things that we call, you know, that we hold dear as a people has been tested and tried over a period of time. Like my mom, you know, she will say that you know, she will say it with so much assurance, knowing that this is the result of whatever folly that you are engaging in right now, because I know that these things don't work. And no matter how stubborn you prove, you go and you come back and know that, yes, whatever it is that they were telling me or warning me against, there are so many things that a lot of people don't understand, that it has been tried, it has been tested, and that is why it is universal. Well, within a group, acceptable. It has become acceptable because it has been tried. So in your own interaction, do you think people pay this much attention to any rule before they decide to just jettison the rule?
Okay, so I think I said it. The question is, again, why do you want to change? And change for what purpose? So today we see people who change because it looks like the woke thing to do. I want to change because I see everybody changing without really understanding the fundamental behind those changes. Now, if I see the need for a change in the way I used to do things, because I have seen empirically that there are going to be benefits, I mean, as a result of those changes in either my attitude, in my character, or in the way I do things, and it's going to bring better results, of course, I would go for the change. But if I am changing just because everybody's changing without really thinking about the consequences. So let me just
Okay.
give an example to buttress what I'm saying. Today, the economic reality of this generation, this current generation that we all live in, says that it is not the best for only one person to be the breadwinner in the house. I mean, our fathers or our forefathers grew up in the culture that believes that the man is responsible to go out, hunt or farm, and bring food back home for the family, while the woman stays at home and just take care of the house, take care of the home, bring up the children. But today, the economic reality, tells us that that is no longer the best thing to do. Of course, you could have some exceptions. So today, you need the man and the woman to go out and hustle, as we say, engage and be engaged economically, so that the two of them can come together and help the family. Now, that has a lot of implication. So the question is, who then takes care of the children? Who takes care of the home, right? Now, if between the husband and the wife, there is the agreement that, okay, the two of us, we need to work, and the two of us need to bring something home, then the two of the two involved, the couple, should also come together and ask themselves, how do we share the responsibility? Because you would not expect you and your wife to leave the house at 6 a.m. or 5 a.m., depending on where you live in Lagos, and the two of you still come back at 7:30, 8:30, and expect the woman to still fulfill all those traditional roles that we think belongs to the woman alone. So there's been a shift, there's been a change in that culture, but you need to be intentional in asking yourself, which path do we follow? So do we just want to go out together? So we want to take advantage of the fact that the woman is also economically empowered or economically involved. The man is economically involved, but at home, you don't want to share in the responsibility of taking care of the children or taking care of the home. So that's just one example that we can look at.
It looks like people just change without necessarily considering, according to you, people change without necessarily considering the consequences. That is some of the things. Okay, so that, I want to ask now, in what examples would you have to buttress the fact that, well, there are some things that were really up for negotiation and that were really up for, that had been improved on. Trust me, our parents didn't have the best of marriages too. If we slimline these two relationships, what are those things that you think that this generation, they have done well in negotiating for, in demanding for, for their rights, quote and unquote?
Yeah. Fantastic question. Straight off, I would say finding their voice. I think that it's a significant improvement, and a beautiful change that we are seeing, where people are able to speak up for themselves. People are more vocal. People are able to question certain things that ordinarily wouldn't have been questioned prior to now. So the fact that people, especially the younger ones, and I really, really admire that about the millennials and especially the Gen Zs. I really can't wait for the Generation Alpha to see the level they will take it to. But the fact they can ask questions.
I'm scared.
When we were growing up, we couldn't ask certain questions at home. not because our parents, when they loved us and they wanted the best for us and everything, and we sort of reasoned it out that, you know, there are certain things that are out of bounds, but you have that has changed now. So you are engaging a child and you're saying, okay, I need you to do this and that, and the child is asking, but why? And then you are telling them, so you don't even have a choice as a parent other than to engage and give reasons. Gone are the days where you just, my friend, go and do this thing because I am
Because
your
mommy
mother or
says so.
because I'm your father. No, so these are the same set of people who are going into relationships, for example. These are the people who are in relationships who, you know, proud to now, because again of the patriarchal society that we typically have found ourselves, where certain things are for a particular gender, and then the male gender is traditionally believed to have an upper hand and all of that. You now find a situation where people have found their voices and they're asking questions. So there's no automatic assumption that okay, so once you get married, it is given that if anyone is going to not work, it will be the wife, for example, or it will be all of those. So I really think that finding our voice, I like to join myself to this generation. So when I say our voice, I mean it's a beautiful thing. Again, are we are there extremes to this? Of course there are. There are extremes to this. And then you have found people have taken being vocal to another level where they have become insultive, where it is no longer, you know, there are certain things that were taboo prior to now in our own culture. You can't raise your voice as an elderly person. You cannot, you know, ask certain questions. You can't call certain people
drag you on
names.
Twitter.
But now it's almost so. I think that we should just we like Pastor Taya said, let's find the good and let's teach, encourage, and focus on that good. Again, let's emphasize the consequences of the good. So we found our voices. We are finding our voices. It is good. Let us understand where the lines are blurred, and let us understand where it becomes negative when it is used in a certain way. I think that would also really help. So that's one key example that just comes straight to mind.
Okay,
Can I
yes,
just
you can
add? Yeah,
add
can I
to
just
it,
add
and
something?
also you can also talk about the extremes as well. You can add to it and also talk about the extremes.
So now I think people of our generation, because we all belong to the same generation in a way.
No,
people of our generation.
You are older.
Me,
I'm not in a hurry.
Don't let us go there. Nobody's in a hurry. We are not in a hurry too.
I'm a Gen Z.
But now, seriously, I think Gen Z mom. I think what I mean, because see, when you don't have the right foundation, and since you are referring to me as pastor, you promise not to call me pastor. No, you are calling me pastor today,
it's
so
not
I will quote scripture. If the foundation be destroyed, what can the righteous do? And I think I will bring it back to us parents. What values are we changing? See, culture can shift, but values should not change. The values of respect, the value of I'm sorry, the value of respect, the value of godliness, the value of hard work, the value of, you know, all those values that you can think of that we all were brought up with. The values of contentment, the value of patience, perseverance, the value of deferring gratification. You know, these are values that were taught, that we all imbibed. Now, the question is, as a parent, am I teaching my children this same value? Or I I'm in that space where I say something like, I don't want my children to go through the suffering I went through. What suffering did we go through? So we have to be deliberate in ensuring that our children, that's our own direct children, the children that we are mentoring, should imbibe these values, such that as the culture is shifting, that culture that now allows you to ask questions before you obey, the culture that allows you to be able to speak up for yourself, the culture that allows you to go out and make money, become productive, become someone who is an economic agent, not just a bread eater, but also a bread producer. That culture that gives you that latitude, that gives you that opportunity, you should not forget all those values that we have talked about. Now, where do we see the extremes? The extreme is a mix of the Yorubas who say Abiko, Akogba.
Please.
We have a set of people. That is what I'm about to do, the interpretation of tongues. We have a set of people who were not well brought up by their parents. They were spoiled. They were given everything they want. They are the ones that will never have patience with anybody. They, when today in a primary school, I mean, I forgot to add that proudly, my wife and I, we started a school. It's 10 years old already.
Congratulations.
And we interact with young, so we interact with the Gen Z parents. And every day, or not every day, regularly, when my wife comes back from work, she inundates me with stories of parents of young children that are willing to front for their children. A child has done something wrong, the child has been reprimanded, and then the parents come to school and give strict warning to teachers not to reprimand their child again. Your child wants to sit for common entrance exam. You're already making arrangements for a 9-year-old child. When you begin to make excuses for your child at this age, like they say, if you have to be the one defending and making excuses for your children today, when they grow up, you'll have to hire a lawyer to defend them. Okay, so we have children like that. And then we have those ones who were well taught, but choose to follow the crowd. And then these are, so they've been well brought up. They grew up from homes where those values are well ingrained, but they choose to follow the crowd. And unfortunately, it is these extremes that we see more often, because they are the ones that fill up the social media. Today, go on X or Twitter, as it used to be called, and express a contrary opinion. And you'll be amazed that people of the age range of people that you paid their school fees or are still paying their school fees, they will insult you the way they will insult you.
They will drag
and
you.
You marvel to say, come on. Yeah. We've lost all the decorums. We've lost decorums. We don't have respect for authorities. We don't have respect for, and when I see authority here, I'm not just talking about political authorities. There are, if somebody tells you that I have had 10 years experience in this field, and you are just about stepping into that field, then something says you should listen to that person. But because you have read, you have watched videos, you have seen people do things, you believe, you already have all the knowledge. And so, like we said, this can be applied to every facet of our life, in relationship, in career, in a whole lot of spheres. You see people, misbehaving in this way. And like I said, unfortunately, it is these ones that we see more often on the social media. They say when the dog bites a man, it is not a story. But when the man decides to bite the dog, it becomes a huge story. And so that's why we see more of those negatives. And this is the one that our children.
Okay, so if
see.
I'm hearing you correctly, what you are saying is that there are also parental influences that cost this, whatever it is that we're having today. Because like if we narrow this down to relationships, I have seen situations where a couple might be having a problem, and one of the parents will be saying, especially this particular, story that I heard was about a lady that just didn't want to endure with the husband, not necessarily because the guy wasn't doing well, but she just wanted to live beyond their means. And the guy continued to tell her, you can't just continue going home to go and meet daddy and mommy every time you want to change a car, every time. Can we live within our budget? And unfortunately for them, the lady's mom was right behind her, that me before you girl, I didn't give birth to her so that she can suffer. So whatever she needs is what she needs. In fact, any small thing, the next thing you will hear is that I've told her to go to the UK to go and rest. Me, if I care about me stress,
Oh shit, man.
So with that kind of influence,
Okay, now.
where really the people that are supposed to caution you, there was a post that I saw some time ago and was talking about someone that forgot the child. The person was on social media and forgot the child in the bath. That the kind of parents that we are having now. The person was on social media, was on the tablet, and forgot that he soaked the child in the bath. Those are the kind of children, the kind of parents that we are having now. So it looks like what you are saying is very rampant. I've heard cases of parents that go to school to ask teachers to put their child in activities. You're even talking about exams. Like, there's going to be a cultural group. Please make sure that my child is on that team that is playing the cultural dance.
And
the child is in front.
And is in front.
And sometimes they also give parents, they give teachers money. Make sure that they are taking him pictures all the time, little things that by the time a child is schooled in that kind of environment with such parents, I know that it got to a point that I've forgotten the name of this cultural
the child
in school.
The child grows up with entitlement mentality.
Yes.
And entitlement, everything I want, I must get. And we know life does not work this way. Life does not work this way. You can never have everything you need or you want. I mean, and this is part of the challenges we face today.
That I was reading online about a person that is a go-getter, is a high achiever, and the first time the person failed, the person committed suicide. The first time the person heard him go. And by the time people were analyzing the story, it boiled down to the fact that this person has not been trained to handle adversity. Everything has always been a yes, you can do this, you can have this, you can. And so for the first time, I think he brought an idea, and everybody just said, no, we are not working with that idea, we want something different. And it just felt like this is a failure, and the next thing was to just commit suicide. So I think we are training weaklings. There is a fault from parents as well. I think we are overcompensating for whatever it is that we have gone through in life.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, every time you talk, I something comes to my head. I'm sorry, Danny. For everything, there's always these two extremes. When you talked about the child, the guy that claimed he was depressed because he failed for the first time. I think also, because again, I don't know, I am a very strong advocate of strong parenting.
Yeah.
And I think the family is the basis of a whole lot of things that is going on in the society today. Now, there's the extreme of weaklings who is always sorted. So he has never experienced failure, as it were, because everything is always well arranged for him or her. And so such a person has never suffered rejection. Such a person has never suffered disappointment or failure, as it were. But on the other extreme is we also have parents whose expectation of their children are super high.
Yeah.
So I have friends whose children are gifted. So every exam is always A+, 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 A+. And then I have my children who are on the average. If you continue to use those other children, even the 2 or 3 kids you have, they are never the same. If you now use the standard of those ones to compare your children, then those kids now in their head will believe that I am not allowed to fail. And guess what? We learn more from our failures than when we have never failed. We learn more when we fail in an attempt to do, because the person that has never failed, like they say, is someone who has never attempted anything. If you have had to attempt stuff, you will know that you can have, and it's okay to fail, but it's not okay to stay in that place. Now, so that guy could also have suffered from the fear of what will my parents say, what will my friends say, if he's in the cycle of such people who believes never, you can never be below, you can never miss it. And the guy will say, oh, what else do I have? Because that's a culture that is common in the is the middle, not the Far East, in the Far East, where people take it to the extreme.
Okay, so from this conversation now, I think that we can as well just narrow down to social media influences. If we will not be truthful to ourselves, even me as an adult, it got to a point where I had to unfollow some people because of the lavish way they were displaying their success and everything. And if you're not careful, you get into that space where you begin to feel like it looks like something is wrong with me. I'm not achieving this kind of success, And in as much as we all know that social media is supposed to be that space where you just display the things that you feel like showing the world. And really, nobody would wake up in the morning and be crying and come and post yourself. I just cried this morning. Everybody posts the best of the best. But it still looks like we believe it somehow. So how would you want to advise young people? And, especially with influences on marriage, on their job, and I'm being very truthful here. There was a time that the people that were in the same field, the way they were displaying success, I have not recorded those kind of success before. And I was beginning to wonder, what do these guys know that I don't know? Until I started discovering that some of these success were overinflated. They were just sometimes outright lies, So how do we begin to protect people? Because this is where they live. These are people that if you post a picture that has not been edited, they would fight you that, oh, mommy, you didn't tell me that you were going to post that picture. I'm not fine there. Everything is plastic. They know they should not believe it, but yet they believe it. And it is ruining so many things. I don't know how many people get disappointed when we hear a celebrity as separated. And you're like, oh, they used to be good together. We know that it's not supposed to be, but somehow we believe it. It's human for you to believe. So, Dami, I want you to just speak to it from that perspective. That how do we? Yes, social media definitely is shaping culture, but what are the limits? How do we, just generally play around social media?
Yeah. So we've said a lot, but it's important to know that social media and how we use it is also in itself a consequence of shifting culture and shifting behavior. So now behavior is shifting from 4-5 people sitting in a room and interacting to 4-5 people sitting in a room and each person is holding their phone and doing their own thing. Social, it's a consequence. You remember we started this conversation by saying, what are we doing about the positive things? How are we handling the negative consequences? Because it's not going to get better. It will not get better. Now you have AI, artificial intelligence. You have all sorts. It's like there is a race against itself, to outdo. And you will keep having all of this. So for me, I don't think we should. It's important that we pick our battles wisely. The real world exists. How much of the real world do we encourage people around us to participate in your home? And the society is a dysfunctional families. These clusters of dysfunctional families create a dysfunctional society.
Yeah.
So if we need to go back home, we need to go back to correct family foundations. Otherwise, it would only get worse. What are we doing at home? How conscious are we of some of these consequences, and how are we teaching the people around us, our children, our children's friends? So I'm someone that I'm very interested in not just my children, but their friends. So my children's friends are my friends. It's because it's not enough for me to do my job as a parent at home. They don't stay with me every time. They go to school, they interact. If I am not some funny parent, I don't want to use any strong word, as abandon their own children to pursue certain things. And then those are the children that your own children will sit in the same hostel with, will live with. And so it's important that we play our part. Let's be intentional about what we are doing at the home front. I don't think we should focus on how to change the world. Let's focus on how to change what is going on in our corner.
To change.
What, you know, it can be as simple as, in your family, do you have a family game night where everybody has to drop their phones and we have to interact? We have to play games. Do we have to, you know, and then the bit you said about social media influence, I witnessed something years back. I think that was pre-COVID, and every time I don't stop to tell this story, and it helped me early on, and I try to tell people around me that story. I was on a flight to Dubai on a holiday with my husband, and on board that flight was a particular celebrity who walked in. I was sitting in the economy cabin with my husband, and this same person walked into the economy cabin as well, and we all had a jolly good ride. By the time we were disembarking from the plane, you know that the business class cabin would have emptied out. This person, celebrity, sat in the business class cabin and, you know, removed the blanket, and started taking pictures. I mean, everybody was disembarking, so nobody was going to say, what are you doing there? Started taking pictures and all of that. I looked at, I don't want to refer to the gender. And then less than a week after, I saw these pictures on Instagram.
So the
Feeling in Dubai. This is how life should be. You know, stuff like that. And, you know, there were so many comments, goals, that is how to live, this and that. And for everyone who has followed this person, they believe that, oh my goodness, this is how life is. This person did not fly that particular cabin. And there's actually nothing wrong with you not flying, but because people want validation from the environment, people want validation from total strangers, they will go to any length. And so let us know that these pressures will not stop. We are the ones that should give ourselves brain, like we say in Nigeria. We are the ones that should remind our children. Let our children remind their own friends. Let us be and always remind each other that there's a real world out there that is not social media. There's a real world out there where people interact, where people have the opportunity to showcase their talents. And we should focus on these things, focus on how to build back a healthy society. It has to be deliberately taught. We have to find a way to use our influence to teach it in schools. Find a way to, shed this light in our little clusters. And hopefully with you shining your light, teaching, focusing, being intentional, with each one doing their own bit in their own corners, will make a some difference, let me say.
Okay, so now there's something that continues to bother me, and that is, when these children when they claim that they are very exposed and they know what's up, they are a woke generation and all of that, in their negotiations, in the things that they agree to, I now begin to wonder, And like we have rightly said, where are your values? What exactly are you as exposed as you claim that you are? Say, for instance, you may be speaking to a young couple now, and you would hear them say something like, okay, when it comes to marriage, we know that eventually people cheat. And so instead of me to be heartbroken, let's just enroll for an open marriage. And I think that is fine. In fact, because for them, that is an antidote to heartbreak and betrayals. And so why not just, and in their negotiation, you're wondering if you have sense, so by this should not be, all your work. This is because there was this case that I was privy to, where they agreed that in our relationship we'll keep it open because we don't want to suffer betrayals and heartbreak. Instead of you to be doing something behind my back, do it so that I even know. But the only thing they agreed is that, okay, between us, we are not going to have anybody that is familiar. You can do whatever you want to do with strangers and make sure that you don't bring it close. That's what they settled for. There's another person that I heard of again, it's still on this their wokeness, the guy is like, I give you everything. So if this my weakness, which is, being unfaithful every now and again, should not be a big deal. And they settled for that. You understand? So you are looking at the quality of their choices, and you're like, is this what the whole wokeness is about? And so for me, does that, I don't even know how to frame the question now.
I
The
think
thing is,
it comes back to
quality
values.
of their,
It still
yes,
comes
with
back
the
to
quality
the issue
of
of values. Like Pastor Tayo said earlier. Yeah, is Pastor Tayo. It comes back to the issue of values that he had spoken to. And if we, you see, many times, some of the things that these people believe, they project, they are not actually being sincere with themselves. It's just a fluke. It's a facade. I want to look happy. I want to, and I want to accommodate certain things. They are truly not happy. So if we don't keep emphasizing on the foundation of having strong values, people will settle for all sorts, and it doesn't make it right. So let me allow Pastor Tayo to speak more to that, because they had actually broached on that earlier, and
yes, because I just want
nice
to
hear him
understand,
speak.
because the quality of their choices continue to just make you feel like, oh, this is all you can come up with.
No, it's really unfortunate. I started by saying we want the change in culture, but we are not also willing to bear the consequences of the choices we make. Now, if you are getting into marriage, the question is, what is your view about marriage? What are your beliefs about marriage? Because what your belief sets getting into marriage is what is going to determine how you get into it. If I get into marriage already believing that nobody can be faithful, it can never work, what are we talking about? Why go into the marriage institution in the first instance? And again, that comes back to we of our generation modeling what should be the best. How do my children see my marriage? And my wife and I, we do this, once in a while when we're with the children, to ask them this type of questions. What do you think about our relationship? What are the good things that you can take from us? Because it's important to check with them to be sure that, you see your parents regularly. Don't be carried away by those people, like Dami said, that are taking pictures in the business class. We should not hide anything from these children. Let them see it as it is. Let them see it as it is. It's okay for people to live fake lives on social media, but you should not live a fake life with your children, because they are going to be confronted with all manner of things, like you have just said. We know people who almost on a weekly basis. The relationship, they're always flaunting it on the social media. Oh, you are my world. You are the butterfly in my garden. Yeah, da, 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 da. But when you move close to them, you know that, in fact, the reality is that these days, for those that I mentor, once I see you put those type of posts up, I am tempted to call you.
Are you okay?
To say, how are
Are
you?
you okay?
How is your wife? I hope everything is fine. Because when you just wake up and you put those things, yeah, it's okay to celebrate your spouse.
Yeah.
Super okay to celebrate your spouse. But don't do it because you also want to flaunt your marriage. Don't try to impress people, and be conscious of modeling it to your children. Be conscious of checking from them the feedback and asking them too, who is your dream spouse? Who is your dream husband? Who is your dream wife? What are the things you are looking out for? I mean, what are the things you are looking out for in a man that you want to live the rest of your life with? And regularly make this a topic that we have to really have. I mean, we should be having conversations about. Let me hear you, because yes, you are now the Gen Z. Things have changed. But let me also talk about what has kept us thus far.
Yeah.
What has kept us thus far. So let's talk about it. And we also need to help them to understand that, like somebody wrote here, there's a real life out there. Life is not about what you see on social media. I remember there was one country, I mean, whether it's Japan or something, that was going to regulate the use of social media, that when they see you, that what you are posting on social media as yourself is different from your real life, then you are guilty of some offense. I don't know. But I think we need to get to that level to let them know that, see, all these things that you are seeing on social media are not always true. Yes, it is true that the guy flew Emirates, I want to assume. It is true that person flew Emirates, but it's not true that he or she flew business class. Let them know. You understand? And let them see that the people doing this thing so that their head can be reset. But the people that are the people that are there already, I don't know how we can help them. You counselors, you therapists, you are the people that will help those ones. But for the children that are yet to get into that space, is our responsibility to ensure that we keep talking about it. Yoruba will say, "Bomo bomo, laaro faditi."
So God be the glory. Because sincerely, I think the concepts and constructs of success on social media is so damaging that sincerely, even as an adult, if you're not careful, you'll be blown away by, because someone that has 500,000 followers, you see an MD of a particular company having 200 followers, and you feel like you are better. And I'm wondering, are you okay? Are you okay? And sometimes they forget that the number of people that are not on social media are a lot more than the people that are on social media.
Absolutely.
A lot of
let me give you a joke.
It's not on social media.
Let me give you a joke, Nike. We were at an interview panel, and then a candidate walked in. So this candidate was struggling, but I kind of liked the person's energy. And so I felt, okay, what can I? So I just, because it was an entry-level interview, and I asked, I said, tell us something global. Give us a global news. And then this person says, on social media, people are dragging our president in Nigeria about his certificate. This was very a few days ago, Yes,
in a financial institution.
I said
You have come to interview in a financial
global
institution.
news.
That was goodness sake.
Global. Yes, it's a global issue because it's all over social media. It's a global issue. And I'm like, can you get your head out of X? Can you get your head out of Twitter? That is not the global. I said there are key issues going on across the globe. I said, do you know the country called
that impacts
Israel?
on our economy?
Said, yes. What is going on there? I think they are fighting with Gaza. Israel is fighting with Gaza. At that point, I just gave up. I said, okay, thank you very much. We just rounded up. So people,
They
a lot
are
of young
myopic.
people think
Yeah.
the world starts and ends on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. They just combined it. The world is a global village.
And they are influencers. And they are whatever
There's
they
a
are
real
Yes. And
world
influencing.
because
out
they
there.
also learn that people are making money from it, so it feels like it's the real world. That at least there are some people that
Unfortunately
are making money from there. So from what we have said, let me just quickly make a quick recap. We talked about values. We talked about our own values as spirit. I mean, what kind of values are we showcasing to the children? What are our expectations from them? Do we over expect from them or under expect from them? Then we talked about David talked about clusters of dysfunctional families create a dysfunctional society. So we should understand that the power of what we are modeling to our children. There's a lot. If we model right, that means your face is. We are not seeing your face.
Oh,
Please bring down
fair.
your. Then I think Dami also raised something very important. She talked about the fact that some of these people are seeking validation and they can go to any lengths to get the validation that they need. So we talked, Pastor T, you talked about vulnerability. If we are vulnerable enough to talk about the things that we are going through, we can package to the world, but not to the children. Let them know exactly how things are, so that some of these things would be rightly handled. So the last thing that I want us to talk about today, which is also a way of you advising the people, is, and I want to narrow down to relationships now. I think that one of the most disturbing things that I have seen when it comes to relationships is that sometimes, not even sometimes, for any relationship to thrive, I don't think that you can sit on your rights or stand on your rights. Whether you're sitting or standing, you cannot be on your rights all the time and have a relationship or marriage that will work. So many times there has to be compromises, and it looks like this generation has been deceived into, because we have found our voice, because we can talk, because we can negotiate. And okay, let me give an example. Some persons was talking about the fact that the husband wants to pay rent, and she's like, no, I can't allow you to pay the rent, because if you are paying the rent for the apartment, it means that it becomes your house and you could give me rules, so you make your money, I make my money, and we're going to split the rent in half. So there's no how that house can be your house. It's going to be our house. And the guy is like, this is my responsibility as a man. So this right of an issue, how would you, in whatever areas that you have seen, in whatever examples that you have seen, how do we begin to help young people understand the issue of rights? Yes, they need to have rights, but to what extent? How do they manage it so that we don't just have crashing relationships everywhere? You want to go first, Dami?
Thank you, Nike. Honestly, it's a critical issue, and I think it's from the erroneous belief that equality is necessary for a relationship to be fair. I think the emphasis should be more of equity and not necessarily equality. Otherwise, we would find ourselves at some point with the rate at which we are going in this crazy world. We will find manufacturers manufacturing cars with 2 steering wheels. We'll get to that point, because if somebody wants to go left, somebody wants to go right, then So I always said, because I have the opportunity of taking intending couples who are preparing for marriage. I sit with them from time to time and we talk. Leadership is a responsibility, and in a relationship, you must recognize that there is a leader. So if you have a problem following someone who should be your leader, then in the first instance, you have no business marrying that person.
Yeah.
And I always give an example. No matter how brilliant a child is, I have a 14-year-old, brilliant. He cannot say, Mommy, he picks my car key and he sits behind the wheel and say, Mommy, let me drive you to Lekki Ajah bus stop, and I will hop into the car. I will not. So leadership, you allow somebody to lead you first because you trust that they are going in the right direction, because they have the qualities and the capability to lead you. It doesn't make you irrelevant in that relationship. So I think we need to readjust how we approach all of these things. Then for sanity to be, there must be leadership.
Yeah.
I do not think that people are equal, a husband and wife are equal in a marriage. And I mean, but it is more of equity, where each person is leveraging their strength, and we are working to overcome our weaknesses so that we can have a healthy home, we can build a healthy family. If people don't understand that, then the problem of fighting and competing with each other will prevail.
Yeah.
I think that's just one
Okay,
thing.
Prophet, please go ahead. The issue of this.
Okay, so you talked about right. And I think the missing link is the fact that we all forget, or this generation that we're talking about, they forget the fact that for every right, there is a corresponding responsibility. So Danny has talked about equity instead of equality, because equality always does not bring fairness. So every right that I have, there is a corresponding responsibility to it. And so when I am saying it is my right to do this, what responsibility am I taking up in order to ensure that that right is guaranteed? And don't forget, where your right ends is where somebody else starts. And so we need to understand that first and foremost. Number two is the values that we talked about. And the one I want to emphasize right now is the value of perseverance. Today, we have a generation that are short fuse.
Yeah. Low trend.
I can't take it no longer. I am done with. I can no longer tolerate it. And then when you ask, what exactly is the issue? What exactly is the issue? You hear funny stories that you can't even imagine in your own time. The person that you have gotten married to or you are in a relationship with is a human being, is a person that has limitations, that has weaknesses, that you, and this is where, Dabi was talking about taking couples in, intending couples in some preparation. This part of it is that we're losing today. When you tell couples, it is important that while you are dating and looking forward to marriage, submit yourself to some authority figures who will take you to some preparatory stages leading into marriage. Then they tell you are wasting your time. Everything has to be instant. Everything can be instant. And so they want to meet each other today, get married in the next 1 or 2 months, because they think, oh, we are compatible by some AI algorithm that has come up as that has said, oh, we are a match. And they don't even understand each other. They don't understand what are the peculiarities of this person, what are the limitations of this person. Does this person have characters that I can live with? Does this person have characters that I cannot tolerate? Whatever you cannot tolerate when you are dating, do you think you are the one that is going to make the changes when you get into marriage? Marriage does not change people. Marriage actually creates the fertile ground for whatever seed is in the inside to show forth. That's what you see in marriage. So the preparation for marriage is so important that it should never be under-emphasized. Or rather, we cannot overemphasize it. We need to keep talking about it regularly for people to submit themselves to preparation. Hear people talk to you, hear people counsel you, let people ask you questions that are relevant, questions that you would not ask yourself when you take yourself out on a date. Because where do you go on a date? You go to restaurants, you go to beaches, you can never sit down there and be talking about what is your view about salvation, what is your view about life after death, what is your view about this particular topic. Those are not the places where you have those conversations. So you need people that you can sit with that will ask you those questions and will make you to answer individually, and then you can see where your differences lie, and then those differences can be reconciled. So preparation is important. It is important to understand that you're right. There's a corresponding responsibility to it, and then there's also the part of the perseverance.
Sincerely, I think the perseverance thing is huge. It's huge. People divorce over breaking. It broke my glasses, and I'm done. It's so careless. I'm done. Just very. It will take time for people to know that it was not foolishness that made our mothers stay with our fathers, even though they did some things that you would have been wondering. As a child, there are times that some of our mates and contemporaries, they would say something like, when my daughter got to know that this was what I was experiencing with the father, and my child was like, "Mommy, why are you taking that rubbish? Just leave him." And it's like, and the child will be saying, don't just say it that you are staying because of me. If you are, that she will just say something like, "You don't know, you could hear that it is that some of, in fact, one of my aunts that got divorced recently, she was saying that her daughter wanted to get married, and one of the reasons why the marriage didn't take place anymore was that the boy's family, they were very afraid that you want to marry from a divorced home. Are you sure that is what you want to do? And eventually they were able to convince their son that this is not the way to go. If you're marrying somebody from a broken home, there's a likelihood that your marriage will break. And that if she knew that was going to be one of the consequences that her children will suffer, she would have just sticked it with their father. There are so many things that children cannot see from where they are. And
so, Nike, I'm sorry.
No, please go ahead.
Because it's also important to make clarifications. Number one, you don't understand what I'm going through. It is important that you let your children know what you're going through. Okay? Very important. There's a need for openness. There's a need for conversation between the children. Then it is important. So when I say perseverance, I think there are also limitations to this perseverance, especially when it comes to the point of physical abuse, where there is a possibility of somebody losing their life. So I mean, I just need to drop that so that we don't take it. We don't take it forever and say, you have to. We are
the ones that are supposed to be crying foul. If he does this, I'm leaving. But we are not doing that. We know that there are, because sincerely, some reasons can be very flimsy. You don't want to hear why people are divorcing. You don't want to hear people will say something like, "I feel he's a very selfish person." How long have you known this person? 1 year. 1 year is not enough. So, no. I think it's just a very self-indulged person. Like, yes, people will have weaknesses, and there is nothing really, but that is one of the reasons why you are together, so that you can grow each other out. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. This has been a very rich conversation. I really enjoyed myself. It looks like this will not end again. I just looked at the time now, and I saw that time should have gone.
It is after
it's gone far, gone. So, any closing remarks from you before we end? And if anybody has any question, would you want to just drop your questions and I will read it? And in case you want to join live, you can join. I will see if I can add you, because this thing doesn't used to add more than 3 people sometimes. So, please, if you have any question, but any final words, please go ahead, Dami.
Yeah, I mean, we've said a whole lot tonight. I've really had a great time gisting with you and Pastor T. You know, the comments have been so wonderful as well.
Yes,
With different people.
yes. The
Someone had
comments.
actually asked a question. So, at what age should you allow your children to go on social media? I personally do not believe that social media is for children. I do not think that social media is for children. I know that the pressure is a lot on parents every now and again. You know, the children want to do what their mates are doing, but I believe that you should have is give them a strong why. It's not just about shushing the children up, but engaging the children to let them know this is, and then create the boundaries. Define the age. I believe that by the time you are X age, you should be able to do this and that. So I think that that is a sign of maturity. Then you can access this. When you get to this
Okay, wait.
age,
So there's another question. So that in case, sorry, there's another
okay,
question, and I think this is going to be for Pastor T.
No, I
okay. The
think
other
it's
one is
yeah.
It's
I will answer it for
when
you.
should you
age.
Yeah.
allow
Then
children
At
to
what
know
age do you let
your challenges?
challenges.
the
Yes,
challenges you
Yeah,
are going
because of
through?
course you shouldn't also
Uh-huh.
let them carry a load that is heavier than
a
them.
burden.
You know.
Yeah,
So
Yeah,
of
yeah,
course,
than
so
there. Mm.
as parents, we have a responsibility. You must be the first. Maybe that's an extreme thing, but you must know your children, understand each child.
Mm.
You
yeah,
know what their strengths are. You know, so if we pay attention, it doesn't mean spending the entire time, but the little time you have, what is the quality of that time? It will help you to decipher some of those things. You would know when to use a particular life lesson to teach a child. For example, your spouse yells at you in the child's
Mm-hmm.
presence, and then the spouse leaves, and the child is there, the child witnesses it. That's not the time to say, okay, go and watch TV, go and watch TV. You would have just lost an opportunity to
Mm.
teach that child a critical life
yeah,
lesson,
Mm-hmm.
to say, yes, your father or your mother just this.
On
It
emotional
doesn't mean that it
intelligence.
is right. I understand that he's angry or she's angry, and that's why I'm not reacting, but we'll still talk it over. You know, teach that child that lesson,
yeah,
point out what is wrong,
yeah,
help the child to know this is actually the way to go about it, and build the child's confidence that you as a parent will handle and address it, so that the child does not live there thinking, okay, so this is the beginning of divorce for my parents. So it's all about moderation,
yeah,
Mm.
emotional
yeah,
intelligence, like
Mm.
Pastor Tara said, and just being present. Being
yeah,
present. Be present in your marriage. That's my final word. Be present in the lives of your children. Be
yeah.
present wherever you are. Let each moment count. Thank you.
Yes, let's every moment brief. Pastor T, please go
Okay,
ahead.
so I join my voice with David to say, let each moment count. To the specific questions by Timi Olatunji, I don't know, is that
It's
person my
like you
brother or my
know,
sister?
because Kini no not
Uh,
wow. It's coming from that your side.
Kenny, what is Kenny? What is Kenny?
That's
What
your
is that
Kini
your side?
side.
Yeah, better. That thing makes us get angry very easily. So, okay, so there is no specific age, I tell you. Like Dami said,
And
you
what
know
they
your
can handle
children,
part time.
you're growing up with
Yeah.
them, and what they can undo part time. And so you should be able to know what information or what level of information you should be sharing with them and why
Yeah.
you are sharing the information. Because if you don't know the why of sharing the information, because some people could share the
Mm.
information out of anger.
Malicious intent. Yeah.
So,
I want them to
malicious
become my
intent
friend.
to
Mm.
set the
Yeah.
children again. Thank you. So we
Yeah.
need to be very careful to be sure that our
Yeah.
intentions are right. Because with the right intention, then you can present the case in the right way. So when I say let your children know what you are going through, I'm not talking of only the
Yeah.
negative stuff. So
Your
the
wins.
miracles that your wife performs, how she's able to feed the 5,000
With
with 2 pieces of fish.
Yeah.
I am telling you, you should let them
Yeah.
true.
know
Yeah.
how the father always ensure that your school fees are paid
Yeah.
on time and you never lack anything, what he goes through, what type of work. Let them also know. Because see, a one-side story is never
Yeah,
the
sure.
best. When you tell a one-sided story, you can never have a balance. And so it is important to ensure that every side of the story is well exposed to the children and let them know exactly what is going on. So there's never a specific age. It's a function of what do you think they should do. In conclusion, marriage or our generation, what do we seek for in marriage institution? We seek for stability. We seek for companionship. We seek for lifelong commitment. We seek for security. We seek for caring and sharing. We seek for growing old together. That should be the intent of anyone going into the marriage institution. Don't be short-sighted. Don't go with the intent of, if it's not working, I'm going to get out. No. And that is why preparation is very important. Thank you very much, Sister Nike.
Very much.
Esma, thank you very much.
Nobody
thank
knows
you,
the story
my co-guests, for being Esma.
Thank you very much. Nothing to add.
Thank you so much,
Nothing to
Dami.
remove.
Thanks.
This has been an absolutely mind-shifting in the positive direction anyway. Because I hope that as many people that would engage with this after now would have something to take away from this. Thank you so much. We touched on a lot of things, and I'm really, really glad that we could do justice to this topic. Thank you very much. I appreciate you both. I know you both have a very busy day. These are, if you don't know, let me just tell you, these are very busy executives. Thank you for honoring our invitation.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
It's a pleasure.
We'll
do this again.
And this burden that I am carrying, thank you for helping me to lighten it. God bless you. And have a wonderful evening.
Amen.